It's like being Amish. It is like being in a small sectarian cult with its own belief systems and its own social practices and formations and its own social mores.
Of course, can I take a picture of you, Anton?
We talk in code, we dress a certain way, we're very identifiable to one another, but we are not an open field.
They'll fly business class to England for $12,000 and refuse to buy an artwork unless it's going to go up in value. They're not fundamentally interested in supporting a young artist's career. What I think the art world needs to do is really look at the DNA of how these structures work, how we build our heroes.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. I'm looking for my virtual background. Should I put on a virtual background or is this okay?
No.
Okay.
No, everything should be as organic as possible.
Okay. How are you? It's so good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, likewise. I saw I got the email from Susan Norgett.
All right.
And I was excited. It's like,
I'm glad you could squeeze it in because have you got 2 kids or 3? How many kids? 8?
Right. Who even knows? No, I have 3. They're not here. So notice how relaxed I look. I'm in California. I'm visiting my parents. So.
Oh, okay. So the kids are back with Ben on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's a work trip. So, but it's conveniently
Of course.
in San Francisco. My parents are here, so I'm doing kind of double duty.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad. We'll bring them on. Is your mom and dad somewhere in the nearby?
Dad's napping. Mom's.
Okay. As dads will do. Hey, wait. So what are you doing out there? Because you've got some screenings you have to be at in a matter of.
Oh, I'm leaving early tomorrow for a DOC NYC.
Right.
So excited! I can't. Yeah.
Well, your film, right? It's called. We're just jumping right in, right?
Okay.
That's how I do it, And
wait, do we have to jump? Wait, I heard you're upstate now.
No, I don't. We don't have to actually. We squeeze in some personal things. Yeah, I moved out of the city. I mean, it really doesn't affect what I'm doing too much, except that I like the visual thing too. I don't know. It just opens up some more possibilities to do a YouTube kind of thing as well. And I just like so that part of my having moved and still doing Filmwax has been able, it's been achievable. And it's just that I can't quite make in person as easy,
Yeah.
But
well,
soon.
We did that, as soon as I had the twins. We were living in Brooklyn and we just said, well, I guess this is over, and we moved out to Long Island to Quogue. I don't know if you know that. I live in Quogue now.
Quogue. That's far out. That's got to be at least 2/3 of the way to the right to the Hamptons or something.
It's
right?
It's the beginning of the Hamptons. Yeah,
it is, right? Wow.
But we and it's just been like this crazy thing that when we did it 6 years ago, and people kind of went from, back then people were like, where are you moving to? Over the past year and a half, it's like, wait, where did you go?
Yeah. Do you find people don't know the name of the town as well, or where you are?
It keeps itself deliberately sleepy. It's like Diagon Alley. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
People don't want you to know it's there.
And how long have you been there?
6 years. The
Oh,
twins are
6 years, you said.
Yeah.
That is a while. But yeah, I mean, 3 kids, it's, unless you're a fabulously wealthy documentary filmmaker in Brooklyn.
I hear there are.
And do the kids, what are their ages?
7, 7, and 5.
Oh, did you have twins?
I did. Yep.
Aren't I sharp?
You're doing great.
7 and 7 and 5. Do the twins share a room?
Not anymore.
Oh, are they the same gender? Can I ask? I looked at some photos because I was trying to catch up. I like to be a little bit, if I can, and it's been so long, right, Kelcey, that like just even like running into each other in a party or something. When you have 3 kids, those are few. Like you're doing it now, and you're going to be doing it at DOC NYC because you've got to, you birthed yet another. What?
Are you gonna be there tomorrow?
No.
Will you be at DOC NYC tomorrow?
No, I'm sorry. I live just a little too far for it. Well, my son is in Brooklyn with his mom and half-sister. They're in Brooklyn, and so I'm going to be coming down more frequently soon. But I've been kind of staying up here, focusing on a number of things lately. I'm a little far north. It's like the quag of the Hudson Valley. It's like I'm probably about equally distant from New York City than you are.
Yeah,
Maybe even further.
Couple hours.
Exactly.
We were, when the pandemic started, we were thinking like, oh, this is, there's nothing great about it, but in terms of urban flight, we're like, oh, this is wonderful. We got open arms, like, oh, here come all our friends. And then everyone went north. We were like, oh, come on. It's like the whole creative class just moved up to the Hudson Valley. We thought,
it's true. There are a lot of, and it's on the way to more things because obviously, if you're going out to Long Island, you're going to hit a bay or an ocean, but if you up here, this is on the way, if you're going to a number of different places, or people can scooch this way on their way back to the city, you know what I mean? So it's like, whereas people are going, you're the destination.
We pick up people on the way to East Hampton or,
okay.
Oh,
that's true.
Northbrook, or the pit stop. That's actually how we market ourselves to our friends.
And speaking of the Hamptons, I think your film, I know we're having personal time here, so
I know we can talk about the film. Sorry,
The Art of Making It, your documentary, it had its premiere at the Hamptons Film Festival, International Film Festival.
Yeah, that was terribly exciting. Yeah, it was wonderful.
So that makes sense, right? Because your proximity as a filmmaker to that film festival, and what a great film festival to premiere at.
Yeah, we premiered in Guildhall. Which sold out in 10 minutes, which was completely surreal because, I thought, I told all my friends out there, oh, tickets go on sale at noon. And I was getting texts at 12:15 saying there's no tickets left from all my local friends. I thought, oh boy.
Yeah.
So now they have to go to the city to see it.
It's a good problem to have. Yeah. I guess, for those who maybe aren't familiar, that part of Long Island, the Hamptons, Bridgehampton, Amagansett, all these towns, they have a history. I don't know what it's the case now, but of course it has a rich history of artists, being an artist colony there, really essentially back in the day, right? Back in the, I'm going to guess post-war, maybe before the war.
Yeah, we have the Pollock Krasner House. It's a kind of home to a lot of the, it was home to a lot of the abstract expressionists, but there's also, incredible, landscape painting traditions. I think any place that's, bucolic and scenic and has gorgeous light, the kind of light that you get from, the bay and the sea. And it's, it's definitely a special place, but I mean, there are artists everywhere. And no place like New York City. I mean, anything that's a stone's throw from New York City, like we are, as is going to have, its fair share of artists and its history, deep history in relationship to urban artists just getting out of there.
Well, I wrote down when I watched the film, I wrote down commerce corrupts. I mean, this isn't like an original idea.
Yeah. But
maybe of all of the arts, it just seems like there's commerce is the moment it sort of seeps into this little Venn diagram or whatever of with art, it starts corrupting immediately. And and as we talk about New York City, the fact we both left New York City and we're both kind of in the arts, I mean, it makes me think also about the commerce of cities and or where artists would go to, right? Also historically, these sort of the margins of cities, often like the Bushwicks, what was once called a margin of of New York, and then it gets commercialized. It gets so that's sort of my a bit of what I was thinking about those types of things when I watched your film, and I wonder your story, you know, deciding to make this particular film.
Well, I mean, in terms of that aspect of it, of being parts of artist communities and seeing how they kind of change the landscape of where they're situated and become kind of folded into that gentrification process. Specifically, it's captured in the film in the Bushwick scene, but in my lifetime, I lived it in my 20s in East Austin, where there wasn't kind of much of anything at the time other than a bunch of kind of pop-up, artist-led alternative art spaces, because rent was super cheap, and I had one of those in my mid-20s, Iron Gate Studios, that I started with a couple of friends, and I think we had 4,000 square feet altogether. We were paying $800 a month rent, and splitting that 3 ways and doing all kinds of crazy programming. And within a few years, everything changed. I mean, there are enough spaces like that. It kind of created this critical mass in East Austin. Right. It's still kind of known as like the arts district of East Austin. But by the time I left, Starbucks was looking at our location. So it can happen really fast. But there was a kind of zeitgeist happening in Austin at that time, in that area. And, New Yorkers are much more familiar with that process and have seen it happen. And everywhere from the East Village and Soho to Bushwick, and, it's what happened.
Williamsburg in between there. And I think what I see is just a parallel with real estate and art, because I just see a lot of exploitation occurring. But your film also, I should say, kind of the beginning, at least, kind of explores the also the fact that for so many years and decades, in terms of the commercial end of art, that the dealers, the gallery owners, all these people were pale guys, right? Barely pale complected guys, right? So that's kind of reflected in a lot of those artists we were talking about that were out in the Hamptons, with some exceptions, of course. But
I think it was really powerful for me to hear, and I think for an audience to hear somebody like Charles Gaines, who's having an incredible moment in his career right now. I mean, he's been an artist all this time, of course, but he's been teaching generations of artists as well at Cal Arts. And now he's with Hauser and Wirth, and he's doing really well. But for him to reflect back on his early days and being the kind of only artist of color, as he put it, showing in these top galleries and experiencing firsthand the racism that he was living through in his lifetime, where he wasn't invited to the dinners, and the forms of racism, a generation later, well, a few generations, I don't know how to calculate it, but that Chris Watts was dealing with in his paintings in our film. I mean, this is, pretty heavy hitting stuff to realize, in some ways we haven't come as far as we like to think. There's a lot to work through. Yeah. These artists are dedicating, there's
one Basquiat, and then there's like another 30 years goes by, and then maybe till.
Yeah.
So were you already relatively, I mean, did you already have all these relationships, at least seeds of relationships going on before you made the documentary? Then with all, because you have an amazing abundance of artists, like young artists, and then all these people that are, entrenched, who are kind of part of the scene, the gallery scene. You got a lot of great access.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, with any documentary film, there's always a little bit of the, like, if you build it, they will come phenomenon. Like
build the great building blocks of how you cast your documentary, in other words.
Yeah. There's, it's kind of like, if I was determined to tell a really great story about bodegas, you will go out there and find the bodega, where by the time you're premiering, people are saying like, how did you find this bodega? Just so that,
okay. Yeah.
So that said, when I partnered with my producer, Debbie Wish, who produced the film, The Price of Everything,
Oh yeah, of course, and that's in a big art world documentary. Yeah,
exactly. And she's on the boards of museums, and she was very very wisely partnered with a friend of hers who's our co-producer, Allison Berg, who and so she brought so she helped us navigate. So for instance, Charles Gaines, she had a relationship with Andrea Bowers.
Right.
She had a relationship with. She was the reason Michael Govan at LACMA was willing to sit down and find time to talk with us, and Christine Kim. So getting that kind of access came through her, and Debbie Wish, is friends with Mark Blimscher at Pace. So getting those people who opened the doors to us as a documentary film crew was the value that brings to a project like this is immeasurable. And then in terms of finding the artists and that kind of cast, it's a lot of research. It's a lot of kind of happenstance. I mean, people kind of capture your heart in a conversation or a friend of a friend or at an MFA show. And so we kind of source them all differently. But, as we were filming, we were always looking for a certain kind of balance.
Right, of course. Right. I didn't use that word casting accidentally. I mean, you definitely it's the same process. Mm-hmm. Correct, right?
Yeah, in a film that's intended to be somewhat of a survey. I mean, we were trying to tell a story about an American experience, and we're representing a pluralistic society that wasn't focused on a specific group of friends or tied to a single show.
That's great. Right. That's great. Yeah. And it's interesting as you say that, because a lot of these artists are probably going to show up at your SCA screening, which by the way sold out, I hear, but they're going to maybe meet because of you and your film.
It's already happened. Actually, a lot of them came out to the
Hamptons.
The Hamptons, and
That's
it was
awesome.
Camp. It was so cool. I felt like a den mother seeing everyone.
Yeah.
Getting to know each other.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're crazy about you. And what I was going to say, but it seems like also I want to mention. Oh, and since we talked about that, we'll say at this point that the SCA screening, which is happening on the 13th of November, is sadly for those watching who may want to go to the big New York City premiere. It's sold out. Tough breaks. But there'll be another screening. I wrote this down. So on the 18th at 9:15 at Cinepolis, which is just down the block from SCA Theater. I know Chelsea, so that's good. So there's still tickets available there at the moment. Mm-hmm. And you've had a lot of really great turnouts at these screenings. That's wonderful.
I'm very new to this world. It's been stressful and I don't know who to trust. Hoping for the best.
There's very little support of artists who are emergent. Very few people are structurally saying, how do we make it a fairer and better system?
It's not logical, it's not fair, and you may be one of the greatest living artists in the world and nobody knows it.
I had my first New York solo show in May. I'm really excited about that. I can't remember the last time I signed a lease. I've gotten really good at being in a certain space for like a month, 6 months, 3 weeks. And I really shouldn't be carrying this around. I had to paint this wall black. A lot of the work that I make is made for black walls. I'm just kind of grateful to have the space right now, so. This is the first painting I made with transparency. I was trying to figure out a material that could do what I wanted to do, and I had some silk laying around, and this painting came to fruition after the Fernando Castile shooting in Minnesota. The only thing I could remember when watching that video was just him wearing this white shirt and just blood being everywhere.
So you have this sort of this young group of people that are pushing back against the conventions of the industry that have been in place and that are very strongly entrenched, right? And yet what the whole idea is that we're getting new voices and new and a variety of different perspectives and talent, and then we benefit from that. So it just makes complete sense that but I guess the missing thing, I'm working this out in my head as I go a little bit, but is like, what you don't want is some wealthy guy just coming in, buying it all up, and then warehousing it, like, in a sense, having that approach, right? There's an organic part of this which has to be restored, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm encouraged. I mean, I think hopefully it comes through in the film, but I'm encouraged by this new generation of artists and the fact that they are so intentional and so mindful in asking themselves the hard questions. Gisela, one of the artists we follow, based out of Detroit, who does these incredible paintings of survivors of sexual violence, and she interviews them and then embeds these kind of edited sort of audio interviews in the painting.
Right.
It's most sensitive. So, when you come up to observe the painting and take in this portrait, the audio is triggered and you listen to their testimony. And part of her point is, a lot of these, painters like Gauguin, she references specifically, who you'll encounter his work in all the major museums, but they were painting, she's indigenous from Guam, and they were going, traveling, in the age of primitivism, kind of going around and painting indigenous communities and women in the nude without their consent and very exploitatively, and often sleeping with them. And she's reflecting on wanting to know what it was like for those women and how their voices are edited out of these paintings that were painted without their permission. And so she's taking that back, painting.
Reclaiming, I think she used the word reclaiming the canvas or reclaiming the palette.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but she's also thinking, at a later point in the film, she's reflecting on the fact that she's making this work, letting these women dictate how they want to be posed, how they want to be presented, speaking with her, building this relationship of trust and all this. But then she's reflecting later about, like, where should these go? Is it fair for a collector to own this? Should they be paid royalties for, over time, not her so much, but her subjects. And then she kind of emphasizes how important it is for her work to end up in these cultural institutions and museums, because it's part of history and part of our cultural legacy. And I think that's why it was so important for me in making a film like this, that we kind of climb that ladder, that we move out of the artist experience, as much as it's a ground up look at this ecosystem, kind of steeped in the point of view of these artists. I needed us to get all the way, from academia, where their kind of careers are launched, through the studios, through these Bushwicks, these areas.
Well, it's a pipeline.
Yeah, all the way to, through the market and into these institutions, because the institutions themselves are in distress. And it's interesting because we were kind of wondering, how are we going to show this cinematically, at the beginning of the film, kind of working out how we're going to tell the story, without realizing that, of course, we'd, a year into the film, be filming through a pandemic. And, we had no idea, when I was interviewing Gordon Knox at San Francisco Art Institute, that a year later, this 150-year-old institution would be announcing that they're closing their doors. I mean, it was just so surreal to be trying to tell a film of this level of ambition.
It's a very ambitious story, but you tell it, I think, quite fluidly. I mean, anybody watching will definitely walk away with the message behind the film and be thinking about these things, like me. I was also looked at as Yale as kind of being a bit of a villain here, but it's not really the point. The point is really is kind of rethinking this pipeline idea of where, even the teachers there are like, they know 98% of artists can barely scrape by, let alone make a living, or they won't. And so, to saddle them with hundreds of thousands potentially of debt, of student debt, it seems, it's hard. It must be hard to sleep at night, at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really giving them a great start in life. It's called The Art of Making It, and it's directed by Kelcey Edwards, and it's having its New York City premiere at DOC NYC. Go to docnyc.net right now and get a ticket for the 18th.
.com.
Yeah, and then it's .com.
Oh, I don't know. I'm asking you.
Anyway, Just to Google DOC NYC. It's the biggest documentary film festival in probably in the world at this point. But anyway, all right. Well, let's sign off.
Great to speak to you.
And have a wonderful experience. I'm sorry I'm not there for your big premiere, but I'll make it up to you guys and say hi to everybody for me.
Watch us on an airplane in a few months.
All right.
All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.